The Rock Whisperer. Do you hear the earth talking to you?
Seven other movement of soil. So when we first started talking in this chapter, we talked about how water moves soil. We also talked about wind and ice. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're also going to talk about the life cycle of a stream in this particular section. So first slide is going to show us a little bit about wind and ice. So wind, thinking desert and beaches, you're going to have sand that's going to be blown around, and that can lead to pitting in rock. So in this particular picture here, you can see that there are kind of holes in the rock that are one way. As the sand is blown into certain areas, you're going to have these pits that form because the rock is continually hit over and over again with small sand particles, and it's going to carve it away over many, many years. Sometimes in the deserts in Arizona, even in some of the towns where the telephone poles are, they'll pile rocks around the bottom of the telephone poles so the telephone poles don't get chewed away too much at the bottom. And then glaciers, they help to scrape the earth. And also you're going to find rocks that are going to be striated or have striations in those. And that is going to help you, going to be more like a bulldozer. The glacier is going to be pushing down the hill. And this is the diagram to look at for that one. And as you can see, the glacier is pushing down the hill a small amount as it continues to push the pile of rock and debris, which is called moraine, sometimes terminal moraine, terminal meaning the end of the moraine of the glacier. And then as the glacier retreats in the bottom section, you can see that you have a large pile of material left over. You can also see that there's a variety of different types of sediments that are in that particular diagram. The striations or the scratches or parallel grooves that are left behind from glaciers as they take those sand and pebbles and they're being pushed down the hill. The bedrock that's actually underneath the glacier will have those marks. So a lot going on in this particular type of diagram. Number one, I believe in your notes, moraine may be spelled incorrectly. I think I missed the I in that. But these are some of the sedimental features that you'll see because of the agents of erosion. So we talk about gravity, we talk about glaciers, we talk about wind, we talk about running water. And when we talk about those, we're going to see different things that are going to happen. So I know it's a tough thing to do. Put your pens and pencils down. Just watch for a minute so we can kind of see all the different things we're going to talk about. So up here we have angular going over here to rounded. That's talking about the different types of weathering. On the bottom, when we look at this diagram, number one is very unsorted rock. And as we get over here, we have 2, 3, 4, 5, and number 6. Number 6 is sorted material. So when we talk about gravity, we're talking about rocks that are high up in the air. They break off, maybe because of frost action or root pry, and fall to the ground. When they fall off the cliff, one, they're going to be angular, like here. But because they're going to break off, and as they're falling, they may break into different pieces, they're also going to be unsorted. So they're a combination of angular and unsorted, which is number one in this particular diagram. Glaciers that are going to push and scrape. Some of those rocks are going to get tumbled and rolled, and they're going to break off some of the edges. So they're more in the medium section. They're partially rounded. They're not completely rounded, but they're not completely angular either. And for the most part, it's going to be unsorted. You're going to have some large boulders in those areas. There's some great pictures of New York City that have what they're called erratics, big, huge boulders just in the middle of nowhere. And they're going to be that combination of medium and unsorted. So partially rounded and unsorted. Wind, on the other hand, you're going to be having angular. Wind is going to blow. It's going to pick up smaller particles and move them along. But because they're hitting and breaking, they're going to be angular fragments. But they're going to be sorted, and they're going to be horizontal sorted, going from left to right. You can have small particles going to large particles. And last is the water. So water, we're going to have very rounded particles, and we're going to also have the horizontal sorting. You're going to have particles that are very small at one end. They're going to start at very large. Think about where the river is going to empty into a lake. That stream velocity is going to slow down very quickly, and you can have large particles that fall out. And as further the water goes, the smaller the particles become. This rounded water is also in that video from the earth science teachers in Lake George. They do a great job of walking through different areas, showing you the stream curves, but also showing the different sediment size. And the last thing in this particular section is showing you the stream development. So we can see that there are 3 different stages. There's the youthful stream, the mature stream, and then the old age stream. And they have completely different characteristics. So we can see here in the youthful stream, relatively straight. Straight shot from here to here, and you can see that it cuts in a V shape. That's key. V shape is going to be a stream cut, where if you see a U shape, that U shape is going to be a glacier. You can see when we get to the mature stage, you start to move back and forth a little bit. You start to create a small floodplain. And then when we get to the old age stage, you can see the stream moves a lot. It meanders a lot, and we have a really big floodplain. So just 3 little diagrams to finish up here. 1, youth, it's going to be a V cut. It's cutting down into the land. It's going to be moving relatively straight. That's when the stream is at its fastest. You can see here, it would go from here. It may start to move a little bit, but it's still cutting straight down. As we get into the mature stage, the stream starts to bend a little bit. These bends are called meanders. Key word that you need to know. We start, instead of cutting straight, we start cutting side to side a little bit. And the speed, because we're moving side to side, starts to slow down a little bit. And then the last slide that we have is the old age or the mature stage of a stream. And in this, you start to have more of a U shape to the bottom of the stream. It's not so much it's cut initially as a V. It's a little more rounded. And you can see the stream really starts to meander. You get a bigger floodplain. These lakes here are called oxbow lakes. And what actually happens, you could see one would be forming here. When the stream floods, it's going to flood and go straight. And when it floods and goes straight, it kind of pinches off this, and you wind up, and you can see it that it winds up here. The stream kind of changes its shape, and we have another oxbow lake that's created. Again, remind me to show that Take You to the River video with the earth science teachers from Lake George.
Don't forget to listen to the earth. You just may hear it speak.